Man, what a wild ride this matchup turned into. Right from the opening snap, you could feel that the quarterback came out a little too amped up. The early interception set the tone for what looked like it might turn into one of those messy afternoons. But instead it sparked one of his most electric showings of the entire season. Even on that deep strike to Tyrell Shavers, he passed up two open reads, drifted out of a perfectly clean pocket, hesitated, then somehow flipped the switch and uncorked a bomb that felt like it came straight out of a highlight reel. It was that classic moment where he hits the superhero mode button and suddenly he's everywhere, creating plays out of thin air, dragging the offense forward whether the script is working or not. And watching that unfold never gets old. What I loved most was how he powered through all the chaos. Nothing about this game was comfortable. Missed chances, tough moments, the offense stumbling out of rhythm. And yet he bulldozed his way to 6 touchdowns. 6. When an offense explodes for 6 touchdowns, you already know the scoreboard is tilting in their direction. Performances like that feel like he's tossing on a cape, taking a deep breath, and deciding no one is stopping him tonight. And when the pressure rises against big opponents, that's when he seems to lock in. Think about his showings against Baltimore, against Kansas City, and now against Tampa Bay. Every time the matchup becomes a duel, he rises to it. And how about the receivers stepping into brand new roles? The room looked completely different with Keon Coleman sitting this one out, but that opened the door for Tyrell Shavers to step into the spotlight. He answered with 4 catches on 5 looks, nearly 100 yards, a touchdown, and even cleared a massive lane on that long Ty Johnson score. That is the kind of complete performance that gets noticed in a locker room. Then you had Gabe Davis finally re-emerging with energy, winning tough leverage battles, rescuing a key 4th down, working back to the ball when the quarterback scrambled. It was the kind of gritty, detail-heavy game from him that this offense desperately needed. Even the guys who didn't rack up big stat lines delivered in the exact moments they were needed. Dawson Knox climbed the ladder for a huge 23-yard grab. Josh Palmer snagged a clutch 13-yarder. Curtis Samuel tiptoed on the boundary for a 14-yard catch he almost lost, but managed to secure with pure concentration. Every one of those came when the offense was wobbling and someone needed to give the quarterback a lifeline. And finally, after what feels like years of begging for it, the running backs came alive in the passing game. Tampa has struggled all season covering running backs, and this time the coordinator actually leaned into that matchup. James Cook hauled in 3 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown, and Ty Johnson added 2 more for 61 yards and another score. Combine that, and the backs went 5 targets, 5 completions, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. When the quarterback actually commits to those check downs, the offense becomes almost impossible to contain. It spreads the field, punishes defenses for playing too deep, and keeps the offense on schedule. He doesn't have to force the ball every series. Sometimes the smartest thing he can do is fire that simple throw and watch his backs do the rest. What makes the whole night even more impressive is how they managed all of this without major pieces of the offense. No Dalton Kincaid making plays up the seam. Barely any impact from Khalil Shakir. Keon Coleman not on the field at all. James Cook unable to get anything going on the ground. It was like watching the offense operate without its usual blueprint, yet still finding ways to stack points. That alone is proof that this unit can win in more ways than just the scripted plan. There is value in being unpredictable, especially with the way their defense struggles against the run. Sometimes this team needs to embrace a little chaos instead of trying to play the cleanest, most efficient version of football possible. And the adversity kept piling up. 2 interceptions, 2 costly false starts, a muffed punt that swung momentum like a hammer, losing the time of possession battle by more than 10 minutes. Only 19 first downs. And still, through all that mess, they found a way to turn the game into the kind of high-tempo, high-variance shootout that suits them perfectly. When they let loose and start pushing the ball all over the field, you can feel the defense leaning back on its heels. You can feel the game change. And then came the defensive turning point, the moment everything flipped back in their favor. Cole Bishop continues to evolve into one of the most exciting defenders on the roster. The young safety has dealt with injuries, slow development, depth chart battles, all of it. But now every week he looks like he's playing faster, smarter, and more confidently than ever. His interception could not have come at a better time. After the muff punt, after giving up the touchdown, after settling for a disappointing field goal, momentum felt like it was slipping straight through their fingers. Tampa was threatening to tilt the entire game, and then Bishop jumped the route, plucked the ball out of the air, and instantly put the offense in scoring position. One play later, James Cook was celebrating in the end zone, and the entire stadium felt the energy shift. You could feel Bishop all over the field, too. Physical tackles, smart angles, flying downhill on the two-point conversion to stop the receiver inches short. He isn't just playing solid football anymore. He's changing games. Meanwhile, Dorian Williams had one of his most interesting roles of the season. Early on, he handled base defense, where they've actually been one of the top run-stopping groups in the league, but the real twist came later. When Baker Mayfield suddenly started hurting them with his legs, the defense adjusted. Instead of chasing, they turned Williams into a spy, letting the rushers collapse wherever they needed while he mirrored the quarterback in open space. That tweak started producing critical stops when they needed them most. Add in the fumble recovery after DaQuan Jones' strip, and his impact became even bigger. Terrell Bernard fought through obvious injury limitations, but still delivered tackles for loss and pass breakups. Jordan Poyer threw himself downhill for physical stops and came up with a key breakup. Cam Lewis punched away a crucial pass late. The defensive backs were constantly challenged, especially with the team loading up against the run, but they stepped up with big-time plays on the ball. Even special teams brought real value. The kick return group exploded with long bursts from Ray Davis and a huge 60-plus yard return from Mecole Hardman. Their average return shot up dramatically from their season mark, flipping field position again and again. The punter dropped one inside the 5. The kicker hit every attempt in swirling stadium winds, and for once the small details in the game actually worked in their favor. And then there was the elephant in the room, the Keon Coleman situation. A healthy scratch for missing a meeting is not some minor mistake, especially for a young player already receiving multiple wake-up calls from the coaching staff. The team has invested snaps, patience, coaching, and trust in him, and every time the door opens, these little issues keep piling up. Meanwhile, the guys stepping into his role are producing. They're helping the offense. They're showing reliability, and reliability matters when the margins are thin. In a locker room full of veterans and a franchise quarterback who demands professionalism, you simply cannot disappear on a meeting day. Not when your role is already under scrutiny. And beyond the situation with the young receiver, the offense had more issues to fight through. The ground game barely moved, with James Cook grinding out short gains that never really opened up until the final stretch. It felt like every handoff ran into a wall, leaving the quarterback to pick up the entire operation almost single-handedly. When an offense becomes that one-dimensional, things can get dicey in a hurry, and yet he continued pushing, attacking downfield, and refusing to let stalled rushing attempts dictate the tempo. But the truth is the Bills were winning in spite of their run game, not because of it, and that is a pattern they cannot afford to rely on every week. The same goes for the pair of false starts from their left tackle, who is usually one of the most dependable players on the offensive front. Those missteps extended drives for Tampa, stalled momentum for Buffalo, and made the offense work twice as hard to recover. Add the interceptions on top of that, and you have a game built on turbulence from start to finish. The interceptions themselves were strange, too. The first came on an awkward flick under pressure where there was absolutely no reason to force a desperation throw on second down. The defense was already playing well enough to flip field position, and instead he handed Tampa the ball at the doorstep of the end zone. The second one came on fourth down, where he seemed locked in on a throw that never materialized. The middle of the field was clogged, the safeties were lurking, and he had outlets developing in the flat. It was the type of decision that reminds you he's willing to take risks no matter the situation, but also the type the coaching staff hopes he can clean up in key moments. Still, when the scoreboard lights up with 6 touchdowns, there is not a coach on earth who wouldn't live with those mistakes. Defensively, the issues everyone expected to hear about returned in full force. The run defense struggled again, something that has become far too familiar. For stretches, Tampa simply lined up and marched ahead, peeling off chunks of yardage that forced the Bills to crash down harder than they wanted. When a defense becomes that vulnerable, it tricks the entire structure into tightening up. Safeties have to cheat down. Linebackers have to commit earlier. Corners lose help behind them. And suddenly the areas of the field that should feel safe become wide open. That ripple effect has hurt them all season, and it reappeared here every time Tampa decided to lean on the ground attack. Even though the defense made clutch plays, the inconsistencies against the run continue to be one of the biggest concerns for this team moving forward. There were also moments where the tackling simply wasn't clean. A few slip-offs on the boundary, a couple of missed angles in space, and some late reactions let Tampa squeeze life back into the game. Even on passing downs, Baker Mayfield's mobility caused more problems than anyone expected. He hadn't been using his legs much in recent weeks, but he suddenly found space to escape, pick up first downs, and extend drives. Those improvised runs kept the defense on the field longer than planned, forcing adjustments and wearing down the unit when they should have been dictating the pace. Special teams had its share of turbulence as well. The muff punt was the kind of moment that can flip an entire game, and it nearly did. You could feel the air leave the stadium when the ball hit the turf, and Tampa recovered. Plays like that cut deep, not just because they hand the opponent a short field, but because they break rhythm at a time when your team is still trying to settle in. It is the kind of mistake that teams fighting for playoff positioning simply cannot afford, especially when the margin between victory and defeat can shrink rapidly. And while the return units had highlight moments, that muff overshadowed what could have been a clean, confidence-building special teams performance. The defensive penalties also played too big a role. A couple of those extended drives that should have ended early. There were moments where the defense had Tampa right where they wanted them and then handed over free yardage. Against a team that thrives on dragging drives out, giving them extra snaps is asking for trouble. And when your own offense thrives on rhythm, losing that rhythm because of avoidable flags becomes even more frustrating. It forces your quarterback back onto the field quicker than expected and strains your overall game plan. When looking back at the performance as a whole, you can see a team that is balancing incredible potential with glaring flaws. They can explode for 40 points without their usual contributors. They can force turnovers at key moments. They can deliver big runs after contact, big catches in traffic, and big plays in crunch time. But they can also fall into long stretches of offensive inconsistency, defensive softness against the run, and self-inflicted errors that could unravel games against tougher opponents. This matchup showed both the ceiling and the risk that come with the way they play. The coaching staff now faces the challenge of molding all of that chaos into something sustainable. They have proof that stretching the field, playing aggressively, and giving the quarterback freedom can put them in position to beat anyone. They also have evidence that unless they address the run defense, clean up penalties, and demand more consistency from players who are supposed to be foundational pieces, they might leave too many openings for opponents to steal momentum. The adjustments they made during this game, particularly with the defensive packages in the second half, will likely become a bigger part of their identity going forward. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. The Buffalo football world is buzzing after whispers emerge from inside the team facility about a tense confrontation that may have pushed a longtime starter to the brink of an abrupt exit. According to people familiar with the situation, head coach Sean McDermott allegedly told a key first-team player he won't be coming back following a heated altercation in the locker room. While no official statement has been released, the rumor has spread with remarkable speed, fueled by hushed conversations among staffers and cryptic posts from players who seem to be hinting at internal turmoil. Witnesses described raised voices echoing down the hallway, followed by an unmistakable silence, the kind that settles only when something significant has snapped. Some say the clash erupted over accountability and effort, Others insist it stemmed from deeper frustrations that have been simmering for weeks, a reflection of the mounting pressure surrounding the organization. Whatever the cause, those who claim to know insist the exchange was intense enough for McDermott to make his stance unmistakably clear. The locker room, usually a sanctuary of routine and controlled emotion, reportedly felt charged afterward. Players avoided eye contact, conversations were clipped, and several veterans were seen leaving the facility earlier than usual. Rumors suggest that team captains attempted to intervene later, hoping to cool tempers and repair bridges, but even that effort may have come too late. One source described the relationship between the coach and the unnamed starter as shattered, hinting that reconciliation would be difficult, if not impossible. Fans, meanwhile, are left piecing together fragments, analyzing every social media like and sidelong comment. The possibility of losing a prominent starter under such dramatic circumstances has ignited debates about leadership, discipline, and whether deeper fissures exist behind the team's public image. Until official word emerges, speculation is likely to grow, and each passing hour adds another layer to the mystery surrounding the franchise. If the rumor proves true, it could mark one of the most surprising internal ruptures of the season, one that may reshape the team's trajectory long after the shouting has faded. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.